All right, good morning.
Good morning.
All right, can I hear that again, please? Good morning. Okay, cool. I left my selfie stick at home, but I am going to do a group shot just for the record here. So can everybody say hello, good morning, one more time, hi. Okay, beautiful. It goes on my portfolio. All right, folks, welcome to Stop Talking, Start Writing, Get Moving. My name's John Rumery, and I'll be here probably about 30 minutes or so for my talk. And hopefully my goal is for you at least to get one thing out of this talk as I go through it today. Kind of the outline, it's really simple outline. I'm going to talk about who cares and why bother, and give you some strategies and tips for writing and different types of writing, and share some resources for you that are external to maybe what you've been using at the college to become better writers and to have a more successful and meaningful career. To get started, this is my background. I'm self-employed. I work for a lot of different organizations, or they're kind of my customers of my company. And one is Rapid Growth, where I write 2 to 3 articles every week covering the business and innovation sector in West Michigan. Those are published on Thursdays. It's an online magazine. I teach at the community college here. I'm an adjunct in the business department, and I also do some consulting and work with the service learning program here. And finally, I manage a nonprofit called Software Grand Rapids, where we work with the software community, and we also have programs for 7th and 8th grade girls to introduce them to coding. We do an annual conference, and we do a lot of work with the user groups throughout the city. And in that role, every single day I write. Every single day is what I do. And whether it's feature stories, news stories, interviewing people, taking notes, I write web copy for our websites. I handle the social media portion, so whether it's Twitter, Facebook updates, it could be some LinkedIn updates, some Instagram. I'm writing everything. I do proposals. I'm always in the world of business development or nonprofit work. You're always trying to raise funds, talking to organizations, building a network. So I'm putting together both formal and informal proposals. I write newsletters. I use MailChimp on a regular basis. It's our communication tool for our nonprofits out to our community. And probably 10 to 100 emails a day some days, and it just depends, and it's communication. 80% of those are professional emails, the other are more kind of informal emails. And the thing is, I'm not a writer. I never went to school to be a writer, but this kind of the winds of economy and the way the economy is changing to this knowledge working, writing has become a significant part of almost every job I've done. And the other thing is that I'm learning every day. I don't regret, but the things that now, when I look back, some of these really simple strategies of being a good writer are what you're being taught to in your English classes here at CC. And I wish I would have, understood the importance of that now, because writing is a lot of work, and the smarter, the better writer you can be, understanding strategies, the faster you're going to be, and the better writer it is. So that's a little bit of my background. And my presentation is kind of based on, so who cares? And what I did for this presentation, instead of kind of just sharing my experiences, what I wanted to do, I wanted to reach out to my network that I've grown through some of the work I've done. So I created a survey, and I sent it out to around about 30 different people in the business community. And HR, probably the majority of them were in human resources in industries ranging from nonprofit to design to marketing to technology. Talked to a lot of independent small business owners too in my survey, and then a lot in healthcare, tech, so kind of a wide variety, and what I consider really the meaningful industries, or jobs that are meaningful, that pay well, that are doing important work. So I created a survey, and I just asked them several open-ended questions of saying, from your perspective as an employer or somebody that's in the hiring process, what does writing mean to you, and how would you talk to college students about, as they enter the workforce, what are you looking for in people? So that's kind of the perspective I'm coming. It's not anything, some is from my experience, but mostly is from other people. So I asked them that question, who cares? In the first group, I think what I found, and what I did then, I kind of consolidated, and I took just the key points from what people were giving me some feedback. So really the first person, there's a lot of people that care, but I'm going to start with prospective and current employers. I thought this comment was pretty interesting. It's basically, I'll summarize it, there's a lot of writing up there, but I delete it. And this business owner said, anytime I get an email that's unwritten, that's not written correctly, I delete it. If I get a cover letter with misspelling, I delete it. If I get misformatted communications to me, I delete it. And if you read further comments of this writer, this business owner, he just said, I don't have time to deal with this. I get so many people looking for work. I get so many people that are working now, they're trying to advance. And I'm going to select it on who can communicate the clearest and who shows the most time. So who cares? I think your prospective and current employers really care about the quality of writing. Another comment I came back was coworkers. Coworkers, clients, and customers really care about writing. A key point of this particular one is no matter what you're doing, if you're a mechanic, you're going to be writing. You're going to be writing things in customer receipts. The idea is that you're trying to build these trusting relationships. If you're a sketch artist, you're in the design community, you're going to be writing proposals. And you have to communicate with colleagues. And I think this first one was pretty interesting, especially in this busy day. The last thing you need to do is walk around the office and interrupt people during the day. Put something in writing, communicate clearly, and that eliminates a lot of these types of interruptions that go on. They can be annoying in really busy workplaces. So who cares? I think your coworkers care. They want to understand what's going on, your clients, and if you're a business owner, your customers certainly care about your writing skills. And who else cares? I think you should, obviously. This talks about this thing that sometimes it's unfair, but the perception of you, especially when people don't know you. Now there's two different types. When people know you, they have a better idea. But when you're first meeting with people and they read your cover letter or an email that you're sending or a sales proposal you're sending on, you're going to be judged by the quality of your writing. That's how a lot of organizations do it. So really good writers, really good, somebody that can communicate clearly can really boost your credibility. And I want to put this again in perspective. This is really that first time of communicating when you're meeting with a customer or a new boss or you're sending a proposal. When people don't really know you, how can you get yourself positioned against all these other competitors that are trying to get a share of their mind? So really clear communication is a big part of that. So who cares? I think you should from a career standpoint. And finally, this is one of my favorite comments that came back, and I'll read this in verbatim because I think it's really kind of insightful in this way. Good luck in getting a meaningful job if you can't get past the cover letter and resume phase. I have much better things to do than putting effort into understanding your qualifications or the benefit that you'll provide my organization. And this message, this theme came through multiple times in my survey. Business owners, HR people. I don't have the time to deal with crappy written letters or people that aren't taking the time to communicate clearly. So who cares? I think when it comes to understanding and being a better writer, I think you have a really vested interest in it. And kind of in summary, this is who cares. Your employees, customers, clients, and your employees. So I go on to this next question. I think it's, why bother? So kind of understanding the place or the marketplace. So why bother? And this, before I get into my survey results, this article was in MLive, I think a week ago or 2 weeks ago, that ranked the top paying income occupations by pay in Michigan. And I didn't copy that down, but of the top 10, all involved directly or indirectly some form of writing or communication in them. They're in the healthcare profession, the tech, the design, and education, and sales. They all involve some type of writing in there. So, let alone what you want to do, but why bother? Because you can get the much more better, meaningful jobs by learning to communicate, especially in writing clearly. So when it comes to meaningful work, if you plan to sell anything, and especially sales is a great career, but if you're even looking at yourself, trying to sell yourself, writing will be part of your job. And this one respondent to my survey said that writing, social skills, and analytical skills are the three most important skills in the workforce today. Writing, social skills, which sometimes is the soft skills that maybe you're hearing about in your class, the ability to have some interpersonal relationships with, to work with your customers and work with your colleagues. Then finally, the analytical skills. Why bother? Writing, it goes similar to people's getting a perception when they see your cover letter or emails come through. So why bother? It's your reputation. Miscommunication kills business. It doesn't matter whether it's suppliers, customers, colleagues, or the community. So that's really been a key message that also came through the survey. Employers are concerned when you start interacting with customers external to the company, because you're an extension of their brand, you're an extension of their organization. So the more you can do to be a clear communicator, better writer, the better it is for the company. Good writing builds trust. This was a particular, I thought, interesting comment. This gentleman, I know him, he's a copywriter. He has clients in Thailand with whom I've never met or spoken, but because I can write well, they trust me and they trust my work. And in this global economy, it's not in every profession, but there's so many opportunities to work internationally now with different organizations and to extend your career. The ability to write, sometimes you might never meet that person. Maybe you have a couple Skypes or some Google Hangouts, but when it comes to conveying information from your organization to somebody that's overseas or in another country, writing is the primary way that you're going to be communicating. And the clearer you can be, the better it builds trust and the better it is for your company and your career. Kind of an indirect benefit of writing, this lady told me, and I met with her after I sent the survey out, that she felt that writing, understanding the basics of writing, becoming a better writer, putting the time into it, made her a clearer thinker. And I know that you have a lot of assignments, especially in your English classes when you're going to it, but you think about what it forces you to do sometimes is like outline your thoughts, maybe slow down, do some research, and organize your thought process. And you apply that to speaking, apply that to thinking, it's the exact same thing. It focuses you, helps you focus to really express your thoughts a little bit better and clearer to people. Career success, I've been talking about this already with a lot of people, especially if you are in a writing career, but even if you're not, but a better writer equals higher career earnings. You know, the better jobs, people that are getting promoted are usually better communicators, and they've been doing things that can, differentiate themselves. And finally, this is kind of a little bit of, remember those commercials? Is it DirecTV with Peyton Manning? And some of these other, don't be that guy that, with the short pants or whatever, the goofy guy, be this guy. This is a comment that came, not knowing how to write makes you look like that overweight guy with your mouth open, hands in pockets, bad acne, clothes that don't match to anyone who reads your writing. And he was being facetious on this, but the idea is that when somebody that doesn't know you and they pick up or they read your email or cover letter or a sales proposal, and if it's misspelling, if there's poor grammar in it, what comes to their mind is that this person doesn't care about the job they're asking for, doesn't really care about themselves, they're not educated, they're not disciplined. It sends a whole layer of stories to people's minds. So my advice is, I don't want to be that person. You don't want to be that person who people are prejudging you based on how you're writing. So there's some simple things I like to share with you on really, what you can do. What do you do to build a foundation? And I think a lot of this starts is where you're at today in your classes. I think, CC, Grand Rapids Community Colleges, English 101, English 102 are terrific foundations of writing. And, whether it's just learning some simple rules, simple structures, or simple habits you get into to become a good writer, these are what you build on. I mean, it's just by far, it's not the end game, but it's how you start. If you can understand these fundamentals as you go through college, whether you go right from CC to a job or you're already working now, understanding some of these fundamentals you're learning in the English classes is really going to be helpful. And it kind of goes back to my original story when I said, what I do, I write every day, but I'm not a writer, and I'm self-taught in how I do it, and I wish I would have had a better foundation. I wish I would have known now is when I started. I wish I'd known then, because I could figure out some of these really simple rules about writing, how to structure sentences, how to structure arguments, persuasive arguments, and the different styles you can do. And I 100% guarantee you that you're going to be able to use the things you're learning in the class in the business setting in some way or the other down the road. So now I'm kind of getting into some really simple strategies from the professionals. So I asked them, in my survey, I said, why should anybody care about their writing skills? And they shared with me their comments about, how they perceive poor writing. They also shared with me about their opportunities, what they felt that if you're a better writer, you have better career opportunities, or they're the type of people they want to hire, or they're the type of people they want to promote. I also asked them a couple questions about strategies. I mean, what would you tell somebody they want to be a better writer? And this first one, I 100% guarantee it. This stuff that has been covered in your class. I mean, writing, what I think is interesting about it or frustrating, it's a lot of work, it's really hard work. It takes a lot of concentration, but it's not that difficult. It's a skill, it's something that you learn. You're not necessarily born a writer, you can learn it. I mean, you can really, there's simple things you can do. So these strategies, I think you've heard this probably time and time again from your English classes in one way or the other, maybe directly or indirectly as they talked about it. The first is just really know your audience. And again, this came through on multiple surveys. You know, what are your strategies for students? Know your audience, write to your audience, write in their voice, give examples that relate to them. And this kind of goes through your planning process of being a good writer. Doing the research ahead of time, understanding who you're writing for, then tailor your message towards that audience. And you know, from my experience, you know, as I write a lot of web copy, and I write a lot of, and some of our web copy is aimed at 7th and 8th grade girls and their parents. That's a totally different audience when I write something for a technical speaker we're bringing in from Google or Yahoo to talk to the software community. Two different audiences. I have to use two different tones, two different types of phrasing, and it's just clearly a matter of really understanding who you're writing to. The other kind of a strategy and advice, I'm sure you heard this one too, is weave anecdotes and data together. And when I combine those, I always think, you know, tell stories. So you're telling stories in your writing process. These anecdotes are the stories, but you use the data, which is what data is your research, or the facts that you've learned. You kind of combine them to tell a story. The facts give you credibility. The story you're telling, the anecdotes, really makes it relatable to the reader. They want to hear a story, I mean, and that's what they remember. The other part, and again, I know you've heard this before, always edit your writing. I use an editor for a lot of my writing. I pay this person, or this person's paid by the organization I'm writing for. If you're writing a 1,000 word or a 1,500 word essay or a feature story about somebody, I always send it to an editor professionally. And there's people out there, and some will, you know, it's how they make a living, is helping you write. There's nothing wrong with using an editor as a writer. And I encourage you, I know you don't have that benefit as a student, but find somebody you trust, find somebody you can work with to read your writing, especially for that final paper. It makes a world of difference, and it's used throughout the writing community. Remove all unnecessary words. It's a real basic one. This is part of the editing process, right? I always tell writers, or no, I don't really teach that much in the writing class. I teach a business communication class, but like when you write web copy, if you write like 2 paragraphs, I have to get that down to about 3 sentences is my goal. I mean, maybe your rough draft, you're trying to tell all these features and benefits, you want to tell all these great stories about your product or services you're offering. In reality, people are going to read about 3 sentences. So you learn to get rid of fluff, write very concisely, and speak to the audience. So this idea of editing, going back, removing all this other stuff, even though it's like a cool, maybe you had a cool turn of phrase that you wanted to leave in there. Get rid of stuff that's not needed. Find out how to do that. And finally, this was the last comment this one person said is, especially when you're writing for business, you know, you can do this, or even on your doing email. But when you say I think or I feel, email communication or any communication, it shows you that you're not that confident in what you're doing. And this is something I struggle with. Sometimes I'm writing mostly on emails, sending it to maybe some colleagues or friends that I know in the business community. I might say, you know, I really think we should do this. And I have to catch myself and go back and eliminate I think into this is what we're going to do, or this is what I propose to do. So it's a little thing, but it's a really, the fact that we had some of these people that I surveyed came back and really mentioned that specifically as a tip. Try to get rid of that in your writing, in your conversations. Talk a little bit about some tips real quick after I shared you some more strategies. Tips I think are, well, they're different than strategies. The first is invest time and money into improving your writing. And I know you're investing the time and the money now at the community college, but this is really when you're into the workforce, if writing is any part of your job, there are a lot of resources out there, and I'll share some online courses with you and some other tools. Invest the time and money to become a better writer. And when I do a little bit of consulting with businesses sometime, and especially when it comes to marketing, you talk to a small business owner about their budget for their business, and sometimes the tendency is, man, I don't have the money to spend on this expense for this marketing campaign. But the mindset should be what I try to get them to think about. You're not, spending money on marketing is not an expense, it's an investment. You're investing in your business. Spending time and money on writing, don't view it as an expense to you. View it as an investment, because your earnings, your opportunities, your network is going to be growing as you become a better writer, especially in these meaningful jobs that really pay well, that are kind of flourishing right now in West Michigan. This next tip, this is if you love writing and you want to make a career in writing. I mean, to be honest with you, there's not a lot of careers in writing necessarily. A lot of careers have writing as a big part of it. There is some journalism is still a viable profession, but it's very competitive. But the one where you can make some really good money and make a good living is copywriting. And copywriting is writing all these information about products and services for company as part of the marketing function of organizations. But I know several freelance copywriters. They have clients from all over the world that will send them their information. A lot of times they're hired by agencies that are working for Fortune 500 companies, and they're writing these one paragraph or one sentence types of copy for organization. And they make a very good living, and they're doing something that they love. So copywriting, if you do love writing, is something to look into as a career. And he just went on to say, learn from the masters, and I'll share a little bit about that. Another tip was write like people talk. And this goes back to using anecdotes, but you try to connect this emotional when you're writing. Try to always, especially if you're trying to sell something, try to spark some emotion, make a connection with people. I'm not sure if this next one, the second to the bottom, would surprise you or not, but several people came back and said, read literature, read fiction, read really good fiction, read to be a better writer. And it's not that you're trying to copy what these other writers are doing, but I think that if you do read a lot, especially really good writers, you can start seeing how they tell their stories, how they connect sentences, how they can connect thoughts, and how they use words and stories and facts and weave them together. I try to read a lot online, a lot of business magazines, and a lot of feature stories, and I'm always trying to look at how they structured it, how they outlined the story, how they introduced, how they closed, what the body was. So sometimes reading is one of the best steps to being a really good writer too. And then finally, I mentioned already, get a really good editor. And this is somebody, especially if you are making writing as a living, pay somebody to edit for you. A lot of organizations have their editors anyway that you have to send your information to, but I don't think you should look at writing as being a solo career. It's really a kind of a team effort a little bit to get your work out there. Resources beyond GRCC, the famous books, Drunken Whites, The Element of Style, was recommended. It's something you have on your desktop when you're writing. A lot of this is just give you some rules of writing. There's a lot of newsletters you can sign up for online. He mentioned Jay Abrahams, Bob Bly, Dan Kennedy, Terry Dean, especially for copywriters. And these you basically sign up and you get like either a MailChimp or you get some type of newsletter on a regular basis coming to your inbox. He said, man, find the ones that are really writers, copywriters, people that are really successful, sign up for 2 or 3 and make this part of your daily routine of being a better writer, or your weekly routine. When these newsletters come in, you can check them out, and typically you'll get 1 or 2 good ideas or reinforce things you're already doing. Grammar Girl for grammar questions was recommended by one of the respondents. It's a place to go. Seth Godin, anybody ever read Seth Godin or see any of his videos before? He's a marketer. He's really one of the best. And actually, I was going to pull this up, but I didn't before I came in here today. His latest little blog or newsletter post was tips for being a good writer. And it's written probably something you can read in 5 minutes every day. He sends out these tips. Very good, especially if you're going into marketing, business, any type of profession where you have to sell your ideas or thoughts. This is like a daily exercise. You find these newsletters, you find these writers, you find bloggers that speak to you, especially in your industry, and you make them part of your daily routine to read what they're saying, understand their tips, and how they use words to make money. And finally, some online courses. GRCC, you got your English classes and some other writing classes as you go through here, but there's several other. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Lynda.com, it's really a great service where you can take long courses or really short courses in writing. Another great site, Skillshare. You go there and they have classes, just one-time classes from copywriting to feature story to fiction to writing for the web to writing newsletters. And these are like self-directed learning opportunities for you. And some are free, some you have to pay for, but it goes back to invest. Udemy and General Assembly both. General Assembly tends to get more into digital communication, digital writing, how to write for the web, how to write newsletters, how to write copy that makes people click through and buy your products. But if you see yourself working in that space, or working in this digital space, these are great tools. So just to sign up for classes, maybe once a month on something that you're doing. And the good news I want to leave you with is most people, this came through, as they go through here, most people are terrible at writing. And the majority of people are terrible at writing. So the ability for you to invest just a little bit of time and a little bit of effort and some interest in becoming a better writer is really a terrific way to differentiate yourself from other people. Other job seekers, you're going to have maybe 10, maybe 100 people going for every job you interview. Find ways to differentiate yourself, get experience, and the fact that some people aren't putting their time into it, they're not interested, or they don't see the value in being a writer, this gives you an opportunity to set yourself apart. So that's the good news. And with that, I know I kind of got through this pretty quickly, but I'd like to open it up for questions and give you any type of, help you out if you have any questions on the presentation I did. Yes, sir.
What kind of literature do you read besides like blog posts and people?
Right. He asked what type of literature do I read. I read a lot of online news sources, so I'll go online. And I also read like the New Yorker, some magazines that come through. From a literature standpoint, I do like mystery novels. I read a lot of nonfiction biographies of people. So it's kind of, I say I'm eclectic. I also read fantasy football updates every Tuesday and Saturdays. Anybody else? There has to be one or two more questions. Yes?
I'm just wondering, what if employers, what do they like to have people read in the way of materials?
The question was, what do employers like to have their employees read in terms of material? And I didn't ask that question, but I know the answer is read stuff in your industry. If you're in the food industry, or if you're in the craft beer industry, or if you're in a advanced manufacturing, or the tech or the design industry, read information in that industry so that it keeps you up to date. Oftentimes that's the stuff you're going to be communicating laterally with your colleagues, or you're going to be communicating outside of your organization to customers. But always read. It kind of goes back to what this copywriter told me. He said, man, if you want to be a copywriter, and you could substitute any profession, sign up for newsletters from people that write about copywriting. Get them coming to your inbox every day and make that a habit to read about how they use words to make money. So again, if you're going into healthcare and nursing, I would sign up for looking at nursing blogs, looking at information within healthcare, maybe some healthcare insurance, or dealing with patients. So find out that information. It's out there. It's really easy. And the majority of information, at least you find on the web, you can set up easy feeds to come right into your mailbox every day, or even on your phone. Anybody else? How about the back row? They still awake?
How do you define good writing?
The question was, how do you find good writing? My personal description, is that the question? How do you define it? Me? I define it as something that's clear and concise and straight to the point. I mean, especially in if you ask me for fiction, I have a whole different idea of what I enjoy in writing when I'm reading fiction stories. I'm looking for involved, detailed character development and storylines and plots. When it comes to business, I want to be able to read something quickly. If I go to a web page, I don't want to read. I want to scan the first 2 or 3 sentences and get a sense for what that company is trying to sell me or what their offer is, so I can make a decision to go there or not. If I'm getting a newsletter, if I'm writing a newsletter, I want to be in and out of that newsletter, if I'm a reader, as quickly as possible. I use a lot of, for business, I use a lot of bullet points, indentations, subject headers, bold print, just so that the reader can scan through and get his information or her information really quickly. I can tell you, it's almost easier to find bad writing. And you see it, and you don't understand what's being said, and you stop reading it altogether. Long, long paragraphs, a lot of words, somebody trying to show off using company jargon or academic speak, that it's gibberish. I mean, you catch that if you watch the presidential debates. I know it's a talk, but you'll see the difference between really clear communicators and people that are trying to BS, throw a lot of smoke out at you. And the same thing comes in writing, clear and concise. Anybody else? Yes.
What do employers not want you to read, or what would be inappropriate for them?
Well, I guess the question was, what would do employers not want you to be reading? I mean, what they don't want you to do is wasting time at work, reading fantasy football blogs while you're at work. So it's really more of being purposeful with your time. The employer will want you to be up on your industry. They'll want you to be making sure that you're current with the trends. You're understanding what the current literature is in there. But it's just good. It's not even not wanting to read, but it's just good etiquette, office etiquette, is to be really respectful of your employer's time. And if you are going to be reading something or even taking a break during work, read things about your company and don't get too off track. It's not saying that once you're outside of work or on your break, if you do love sports or if you have hobbies or music or entertainment or food, that's a good way to kind of take your mind and let it rest. But when you're at work, focus on work. When you're reading, when you have discretionary time, make sure part of your news feed and your literature feed is industry related. You just want to be the smartest person in the room. You want to be that person who's current, who knows what's going on with the industry. And I think that's what people are looking for in today's marketplace and workforce.
So, by your own opinion, do you think the student who just came to America to learn a new language, do you think that you want them to write better or you want them to speak better?
That's a good question. The question was, if you're coming from another country to the US, what's more important to the employer? Being able to speak better or write better? And I think it really matters on the industry. I mean, if you are going into a profession where writing is 80% of what you do, I think that's what you should focus on. But there are industries, and I go back to my original title. You got a really good question when you came in. I said, talk is cheap. And he goes, does that mean talk is not good? That's not what I meant by that. I tried to be clever, maybe a little bit too clever. It's more of a metaphor. Talk is cheap means don't be that person who just talks and never does anything, or there's just air bubbles in what they talk about. There's no meaning, there's no content, there's no substance involved. So talk like that is cheap. But I think it depends on your profession. I mean, I think it's difficult for people coming in and from another country and working in this, because you need both. You need to be able to communicate equally well. But if you're a customer service rep that's primarily on the phone, then I would say speaking is more important. If you're working in the back end of a company and you're trying to communicate your ideas to maybe some developers or designers about what you want to be done, and maybe you are working remotely, I think writing is probably more important. So it's kind of industry specific. but something you kind of have to feel out for yourself too. I would even ask that question, when you're during an interview process, so you can get a feel for what you can work on that shows that you're taking initiative.
So how about to be a student? So you prefer the student to have a better writing or first communication with teachers?
That's another good question. The question was, from a student's perspective, as a teacher or professor, what would I rather have the student on to be a better oral communicator or a better written? I don't know. I mean, probably more of an oral at that point to try and understand what their learning is. I think writing is something that you can work on all the time, even when you're home at night, and become a better writer. And again, if you use some editors and get some help writing, that helps. But I would focus on as a student, international student coming to another country, I think I'd want to focus on communicating maybe orally first to really get that language down. Then I can work on my writing and craft that really well too. But that's kind of a subjective answer. That's not from any type of research I've done. That's kind of my feel. It's a good question though. Anyone? One more question.
Just wondering, as far as writing as a career.
Right. Writing as a career.
Yeah.
Low pay, long hours. No, just kidding. It's changed. Journalism is not what it was maybe 15 years ago. You don't see a lot of full-time reporters making good livings. It's went to the web. There's a lot of copy. There's a lot of changes in the industry. It's really been disrupted quite a bit. I would go back from a career standpoint. Copywriting is important, but also in marketing. In online marketing, you ever hear this? What's considered king? You ever hear this term? Content is king. Content is king in this online world where we get information. Now, the challenge when I say that, sometimes content is video, sometimes it's infographics, sometimes it is different types of communication, but companies still want somebody that can turn out really, really, really good marketing copy that's really clever, that's writing. I mean, if you go to any of these newsletters, any of those newsletters that I recommended or the copywriter did, those were all written, and these people get paid per newsletter. There is still opportunities as either a freelance writer or working for a company in their public relations area. Public relations is another where you deal with a lot of press releases that you have to get that information out. But I think you really have to be kind of purposeful. Teaching is another opportunity for being a writer, teaching writing. But the industry is different now. You don't have the journalism occupation like you used to, where you could be a reporter and write. That still exists, a lot of these people that are online. I think the writing careers now are embedded into large organizations in the marketing department. They're embedded in advertising, they're embedded in copywriting, even human resources where they want people to write some proposals. I know nonprofits are always looking for people to write proposals and fundraising type of information, grant writers. So there are those types of things. But if you were to make a career from writing, I think it falls clearly in this world of the gig economy, which some futurists are saying is by the year, 2050, like 80% of us are going to be gig workers, 80% of you, and that means you're going to be working as an independent contractor, working for a variety of companies with your skill sets and getting paid that way. Now, I made up that 80%, but the gig economy is, according to these people that are proposing it, is that it's really it's going to be the major employer. Most of us will be working for ourselves, providing our skills to other organizations as subcontractors. And writing could be a big part of that. Any other questions? It's been a great audience. All right, well, I think, I'm done. We're done a little bit early, but I'll be around for a little bit if you want to chat. And again, my contact information, everybody's big on LinkedIn. Hook up with me, tell me you're here. Be more than happy to help you out and answer any questions. Thank you.